Welcome to the Hollywood Outsider, an award-winning weekly entertainment podcast. In this episode, we'll be discussing the WGA deal that finally got done, or Writers Guild of America, for those not in the know. An Office reboot is on the way, and nobody asked for it. But our main topic this week is a deep one. Can you separate the art from the artist? Let's get on with the show. My name's Aaron Peterson. I don't know how deep we'll end up going down this well, but joining me today are my fellow host, John Davenport.
Hey, buddy. How you doing today?
Wonderful. Troy Heinritz.
Hi.
And Amanda Sink.
Hello.
We decided we're going in order of who arrives first.
That's fair.
I always come first.
John.
That's because you work from home. Cheater.
Anyway, I arrived first this time over John, so I'm offended. I think we should just cancel you.
Well, I was on after you both were here, so technically I'm number 3, but you can't introduce myself third. That would just be weird.
You could.
It's just
you could
weird.
say, with me today are my fellow hosts. By the way, I'm Aaron Peterson, your host, and then continue and
That
put me last.
is great. Maybe you should be a writer and you could write this format. Huh?
She can now.
She
The writer's strike is over.
Yeah, deal's done. Deal's done.
John, are you okay? Are you going to be all right?
No, I'm not going to be all right.
John, for those just tuning in, John very much wants to catch up on shows, but he hasn't done that, so who cares, really, about your
I've
plan?
sort of been doing that.
You haven't done that.
Have you?
All right. So before I move on, I want to say you can always find more info at thehollywoodoutsiders.com, of course, but this is exciting news for me and only me. Moonlighting is finally coming to streaming on October 10th on Hulu. This is one of my favorite TV shows of all time, even though it had that nuclear collapse at the end. Probably the most downward spiral of any TV show in history, outside of maybe The X-Files, but
Or lost.
we're lost. But Moonlighting is a fantastic series that finally will be streaming. I think they're still trying to lock down which music will be licensed, because there's a lot of songs used in that show. But for those that have never seen it, who've never seen Bruce Willis in his prime smirk, and Sybil Shepherd in her most demure, it's just something I'm really excited for.
I'm really excited, too, because this is a show that I've always wanted to check out, but I've never had the opportunity.
I caught it on a recommendation from Aaron after Castle came out, and I had been watching that show, really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, haha, this is a show that already happened. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, it had Bruce Willis in it. And I'm like, psh, I don't believe it. Watched it, loved it, have the physical copy, but who actually brings out their physical copies anymore?
Right?
So,
it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I'm ready to just stream.
So is it better? Is it better than Castle?
Yes, I would say so.
All right. That's good. That's good to hear.
Bruce Willis is better than Nathan Fillion. I'm sorry. Any early 80s Willis or mid 80s Willis is 10 times better than anything Nathan Fillion's ever done. Sorry.
Definitely didn't last, like the good of it didn't last as long as the good of Castle.
Agreed. I'll agree with that.
So
I think he had 3 good years. It was basically, once they did it, it kind of lost a little bit of its luster.
Well, that's what happened with Castle. Once they did it, I was done.
Mm-hmm. You know, the only show that didn't do that for me, like that them getting together, the characters that had all this intense passion.
Bones?
And no, not Bones. Lucifer. It didn't ruin it for me.
Oh, because it's the devil.
Whatever it was, I think it had a lot more to do with the writing and how they maintained the story. Wasn't all about their relationship, but at the same time, the show was always about their relationship, but it didn't fall too deep into the lovey-dovey stuff. And it still made it fun. And he was still the character that he was before her in most ways. Like, he didn't lose his individuality. Whereas I feel like a lot of them, once they get together, they change who they are, and it becomes just about their relationship.
You know, Psych did it too, and Psych was okay after it happened.
That's because it was teased like from the beginning, so you knew it was going to happen at some point.
Well, it's teased in Moonlighting too. I don't necessarily agree with that. I thought there was a good run in Psych where the whole Sean and Juliet really kind of bogged the show down quite a bit, personally. There's like a good 6 episodes where I'm like, this is not the show I enjoy. I just don't care about any of this.
I think, I would agree, only because there's those episodes where Sean and Juliet broke up, and I was annoyed with that whole thing.
It's just all of it. It just wasn't a show that I cared to watch. Like, that was not the fun of that show. And Moonlighting forgot that the back and forth, the repartee is what people loved about it, and the will they, won't they, not just the way that they went. And obviously you could tell that they didn't like each other as the show went on, and especially if you watched it when it aired. This is the one part that, Amanda, you'll just never understand how weird it was. They would go like months without an episode. I mean, months. Troy, you probably remember this because you watched it, right, when it aired. Remember how Moonlighting was? Like, they would have an episode and then they would be gone because they would be fighting or they couldn't get it done in time or whatever. It'd be 4 weeks, and then the next episode, then another 3 weeks. Like, it wasn't TV time where it was week to week to week for those later seasons, those later 3 seasons.
Agree.
That's how you get fired.
That's how the show got canceled.
Yeah.
You know, and Bruce Willis blew up and Sybil Shepherd did not, and there were some issues there. I think they patched it up over the years, but, you know. Speaking of patching it up, the Writers Guild of America strike is over. It's going. So late night shows are starting up. Saturday Night Live is supposed to start soon. SAG is still out the wind. They're waiting to work their deal out as of this recording. Might be done within the next week because I know they're meeting in the next few days, but and they just authorized video game actors to strike. So there's always somebody striking at some point, apparently, right now.
Definitely right now.
Oh, yeah, the big 3, right? They're still on strike?
Mm-hmm.
So the deal that they have, they were asking for a cumulative 16% increase in residuals over a 3-year period. They ended up with 12.5, so that's their compromise. They're mapping out, apparently, some parts of the deal where they get more residuals, they're creating a fixed residual program, and the streamers are going to establish a viewership-based residual in addition to the existing fixed residual. For residuals are dollars that writers would get based on how well something does, so that it used to be when it was syndicated. Now streaming is a lot different. So once something is a success in streaming, and if it's viewed by 20% or more on the service's domestic subscribers in that first 90 days, or the first 90 days in any subsequent exhibition year, then they get a bonus deal.
So, yeah, but for clarity, in this case, they don't actually get a bonus if it does. Well, the residuals that you would normally understand as residuals are not because the show does well. They're actually getting the kicker bonus if the show does well, because if they have so many viewers within the initial beast, they'll get the extra bonus on top of what would be considered the traditional residuals. Is the way I understood it anyway.
Right, and same thing for made for streaming films as well. So they're getting the bonus that they seem to have won. The unions seem pretty happy with it. And just some summary items for what they achieved. The minimums have gone up. They'll increase by 5%, and then they'll go up 4% in 2024 and 3.5% in 2025. There's some increased health and pension contribution rates. There are increased health and pension contributions for writing teams. Each writer on a team employed on a script will receive pension and health contributions up to the relevant cap, as though they were a single writer rather than splitting the cap. So that's interesting. In terms of AI, this is actually kind of fascinating. So, AI has been a concern for both actors and writers, and part of the deal is AI can't write or rewrite literary material, and AI-generated material will not be considered source material under the agreement, meaning that the AI-generated material can't be used to undermine a writer's credit or separated rights. A writer can choose to use AI when performing writing services if the company consents and provided that the writer follows the policies that they've established, but the company can't require the writer to use AI software like ChatGPT when performing services. The company must disclose to the writer if any materials given to the writer have been generated by AI or incorporated AI, artificial intelligence. And the WGA reserves the right to assert that exploitation of writers' material to train AI is prohibited by the agreement and other law. Then there's some additional wording for screenwriter employment. There's some improved terms like a guaranteed second step, which that's a step that's required whenever a writer is hired for a first draft screenplay for 200% of a minimum or less, including original or non-original screenplays. Accelerated payment structure for flat deals. streaming features, which we kind of talked about, but there's a minimum that they get depending on what the budget of the film is. So that's interesting. Some improved terms in high budget subscription video on demand situations, what they get based on those video on demand situations. And of course, like I talked about, the streaming transparency. There are minimums on the weekly pay for those that are going week to week. Rooms are guaranteed at least 3 writers. That's going to be interesting. I wonder what Taylor Sheridan's going to do. He's going to have to actually talk to his writers. I mean, he has to use them. They just have to employ them, apparently. And there's some improved pilot premiums and stuff like that. So there's quite a bit in this. I don't want to go through every detail, but that's the gist of it. And they're moving forward on that. So hopefully some people will get back to work. And that's good for, there's a lot of people that aren't working that have nothing to do with these strikes. There's a lot of crew members. I mean, there's thousands of people that haven't worked for months because of this. Now, I do got a question to ask you guys, right? So the Screen Actors Guild is asking the Writers Guild to not go back to work until their situation is worked out for unity, right? To stay strong. And if I'm not mistaken, and granted, it's been a while since this started, but I'm pretty sure that the Writers Guild started a good month and a half before the Screen Actors Guild strike, and the actors were working up until July.
Yeah, still in solidarity, but they were still doing the promotional tours. And
yeah, they were doing that portion.
They got their cake and got to eat it too. And now they're mad somebody else has a slice of cake and then they're about to take a bite.
I mean, it looks like they're going to because it's part of the deal. But I'm just saying, personal opinion, you're not held to it except by the internet.
If there's a contract, you go show up and you go to work.
Okay.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. If they've come to this agreement, prolonging this would just
jeopardize
potentially
it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It would impact them. I don't think that that's a fair ask. I think that's kind of a, no offense, but kind of a shitty ask.
It's just trying to get, more, it helps them as they
I understand it helps
fame.
them.
Sure.
And they had their periods of time where they were supporting each other together. But at the end of the day, if they're striking, they're striking. So it
also helps them if they actually have content to go back to work for. So when their strike is over, they could actually go back to work and not have to wait 180 days for there to be content written.
Sure. Interesting. Well, hey, good for the writers. I'm glad they got, they feel pretty confident with what they've got and that they can move forward. And I hope the Screen Actors Guild resolves itself soon as well.
We have big Bob Iger to thank for it because he was the one that strolled into the room and saved the day.
Is that true?
Yeah. Basically, when the talks resumed, Bob Iger basically showed up at the talks and he was like, "We're fixing this tonight. Let's go."
Dang. That's a man with power.
Did they hear the drop when he walked in the room or what?
I don't know.
The temperature went down a little bit.
Something.
The one thing that's interesting about all of this, though, is like now we have to think about all the side stories that come out of the strike. And one of the side stories, I think, is the return of the movie theater, which is now going to basically go backwards because the movie theaters actually are going to get hit really hard next year from a revenue stream perspective.
Yeah, it's true.
The just to put this in perspective for people, the last SAG strike that the actors had in 2000 lasted 180 days. So man, that's like a half a year of not working, right? And the theaters in 2018 and 2019 were making about $2.25 billion in revenue. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the pandemic reduced that to basically zero. And in 2022, we actually saw $2 billion in revenue again for the first time since 19. This year, we're not quite going to hit $2 billion. It might be right at $2 billion, but basically 2024 is going to be in the toilet. And I think you're going to see different things happening with the movie theater. So, that great movie pass idea coming back and your A-lists and stuff. I think there's going to be some changes to some of those programs next year as a result. So keep an eye out.
Can you tell
that.
MoviePass to stop emailing me? Like, stop trying to make it happen.
Stop being a fetch.
Yeah.
You had your chance.
You did.
Stop trying to make fetch happen.
I literally just said that.
I'm glad you guys all got that joke, though, that reference.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I'm just keep an eye on the movie theaters the next year because I think that's where you're going to see the most effect. I think TV is fine because I've already saw 1,000 unscripted programs advertised during NFL football on Sunday. So there'll be enough TV to watch until the TV gets caught up.
Yeah, and I do think that's why some studios deferred movies out of the fall. They couldn't promote them. They didn't want to take a loss on them. That's why Dune is waiting until next year. Several of them are waiting until next year because they want to get this worked out. And then they can get people back on the promotional tours because there are several movies that would have done better. I'm not saying they would have done great, but they would have done better by having an actor out there promoting their work. Expendables could have the whole cast out there promoting that work. Denzel Washington could have been out there promoting Expendables 3 and
Equalizer.
On. Sorry, Equalizer 3. Yeah, he should have been in Expendables 3. That would have been cool.
We would have taken that too.
Oh man,
It would have been pretty
crossover.
badass, honestly.
Yeah, it would have made that movie even better.
When you said that, I was like, is he in Expendables 4 and I didn't know this?
God, how sad would his career be if he was in Expendables 4? Like,
It is kind of like the symbol that your
Wow.
career is over.
Denzel Washington being in it?
Wow.
Yes, that would be a symbol his career is over. I'm sorry, and I mean no offense to anyone in that film, but if Denzel Washington was in Expendables 4 for a significant portion of the film, I would be like, oh man, does he need financial support? And according to the agreement, at the time you hear this, writers are back at work, cranking it out. All right, well, The Office reboot is apparently coming soon from original showrunner Greg Daniels, and that's what they keep touting in all the articles, but I should clarify. The original showrunner of the American remake of The Office, because the original was created by Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant. So Greg Daniels did the American version, and that's what they're rebooting. How do you feel, which is a completely different show, similar but different. So how do you feel about taking another stab at the water cooler here?
This is kind of ridiculous because The Office turned into being such a beloved show over here. I think it even as far as how long it outlasted the original English version by quite a few years.
Many years? I think like 7 or 8. Yeah.
Yeah. There are so many people over here who are still telling me every day that I need to sit down and watch The Office when they find out that I've never watched this, and I'm just kind of flummoxed that they're like, "Hey, we're gonna reboot this." Why? You have
Maybe I should
other
have asked
versions.
you. Jesus, I didn't know you'd never seen it.
Oh, by the way, I've never seen The Office.
Okay, moving on to Troy, because your opinion doesn't matter. Obviously, you don't care about this show. Or Amanda, either one
Well,
of you.
no, I'm just I can still comment on the fact that
Why
it's
would you
probably
say no if you've never seen it? You don't even know what people are missing. You don't know. You've never seen it.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry.
I've never seen anyone who hasn't seen an episode of The Office.
I have never seen an episode of The Office.
Well, now you have.
It happened right here in front of us.
That's what
And
she
knowing
said.
is half the battle.
You've
Right.
used "that's what she said" all the time. Where do you think that came from? Your mind?
The 90s?
No,
The Office.
it came from The Office.
No, it did not.
Ba-da-ba-bum.
Yeah, it did.
What's going on?
That's what she said has been around for so much longer
It
than
became
The Office.
popular
It
from
became
The
popular
Office.
with The Office.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because I've been saying that's what she said since high school.
Well, if you say so. Troy, Amanda, The Office, do you want to reboot? What do you want? You have seen the show? I'm so disappointed in John right now. I can't even look at him and his little square.
Why? Because I didn't watch The Office?
Because you were speaking to it like, no, you shouldn't do this, and you haven't even seen it. You don't even know what people would want.
I was standing up for the people who love the original show.
Amanda, what do you think?
So I like both versions of The Office, and I'm sure that they can reboot it, remake it, and do something fun with it, depending on who they cast and everything for each of the characters. But I do think it's a little soon to be doing that because we still regularly reference memes for The Office, make jokes referencing The Office. So I feel like it's still too relevant to us now to be developing it into something else.
Think how sad people must feel that just will never get those jokes or those memes. They just don't get it. It's got to be heartbreaking. People like John, just never going to get it. Tears, tears, tears. What would The Office be if they rebooted it? Would it just be like a bunch of Zoom squares and people working from home? Like, is that the new version?
Ooh, I really hope not. But it's going to be it's going to be the most mixed generation, diverse casting of all.
Oh, it has to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the original Office had 9 white people and 1 black guy. So, yeah,
They
diversity
had
is okay.
women at least, so they were getting the female to male ratio improved.
Yeah, it wasn't a real diverse office to begin with. So maybe
Kelly
that's okay.
Kapoor was there and Oscar was there too. Let's not forget there were other multiracial people there.
They're racial.
Multiracial.
Multiracial.
Sorry, John. I didn't mean to pick apart. If you have a valid opinion, please. You don't. You didn't see it. You
I
didn't
do
see it.
have a valid
I
opinion
knew he
because
was going to do this to you. I knew it. He baited you and you just hooked right on like a little fish. I was even going to try to prevent this from happening and telling you, like, don't fall for it.
Sorry.
But I let it go.
Please go. If you have something, go ahead.
No, I already said my piece. I know there's people out there who love this show, and I don't see a purpose in really rebooting this show so soon when you can do what other shows have already done by making something similar but different. Parks and Rec. I don't know, name something. Animal Control.
Which is as good, if not better, than The Office.
Right.
Parks and Rec in some places.
Whoa. I don't know about that.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine. They've already rebooted it in different forms. You can keep taking the formula and go do something different with it, and make sure it's good. That this whole going back to the well and doing The Office all over again. Why when you can always just do something different with the same format?
Brand recognition, man. Brand recognition.
Well,
speaking of brand recognition, I should mention word came out that Miramax is shopping around Halloween.
So he takes John's opinion and he doesn't even let me give mine. How rude.
Well, you're sitting there pointing at the rest of us
like
being
14 pauses, man. Like, speak up.
You never wait for anyone to stop talking.
I was waiting for him to say, Troy, what is your thought?
You never, ever, ever wait for anyone to stop. What are you talking about?
You don't wait for the invite.
I've tried to do a new thing where I was like waiting to be invited to the conversation instead of stepping on people's toes, you know?
You're growing as a person. All right, what do you want to say?
No, God! No! Please, no! 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 And John wouldn't get that reference, so.
Literally, that was just so he could make that joke, Amanda. That's
exactly right.
All of that was for this joke.
I actually get the reference.
It wasn't even that good, if I'm being honest.
You needed more stank on it. Just a little bit more stank on it. But
I'm actually sending Aaron the clip later so he can put it in post.
Nope. Not going through all that work.
Parkour!
Right. Parkour! Word came out that Miramax is shopping around Halloween for a new film or TV series idea. So Michael Myers isn't quite dead yet. We're going to have a whole talk on franchises next week, which Michael Myers will definitely pop out of the shadows. But what?
No.
It's too soon. Speaking of too soon, it's too soon. Like that crappy.
I don't know. Let's put together a Patreon episode where we craft together the idea and then we pitch it and then we all get rich, quit our jobs, and do the podcast.
I feel like this was a time loop that I just walked into, like back to, I don't know, 2016.
Yeah, I feel like I did that already. But hey, we can do a remake this movie right episode for Patreon for Halloween if you'd like. That's fine. We did one for Halloween, didn't we?
For sure we did.
I'm pretty sure we did. Why would we just re-air that episode and pretend it's new?
There you go.
But now let's remake this TV series right as an extension of a movie because you need to have both in order for it to be a franchise that you do for the next 20 years.
That's already available in the public feed, but if nobody remembers it, we could just throw it in this feed and be like, look, new episode. That's cool.
The TV show would be following little Mikey Myers as a child and watching
little Mikey Myers.
We already had that. We had that in the Halloween and Rob Zombie's version, where we saw how he was so broken.
John Carpenter's Halloween, October 25th, 2016. Remake this movie right.
Oh, Troy's on it.
Okay, thanks for reading us the headline.
You got it.
Our show's independently funded, therefore all the expenses are from our own podcast, and Patreon helps fans support their favorite podcasts. Once you sign up, you get immediate access to all the content in your respective tier. Thank you, new Patreon supporter, Sean Coates, and I believe I gave him a shout-out last week, but if I didn't, I wanted to be sure, Stephen Barris. Thank you guys for supporting the show. Now that you understand what it is, if you want to support it, you can go to patreon.com/TheHollywoodOutsider. That's patreon.com/TheHollywoodOutsider. Thank you guys so much for helping the show. We have a rather meaty topic this week, so we're going to skip reviews this week, but I just want to let everybody know that The Expendables 4 sucked. We'll discuss when a franchise should end next week, and that's definitely going to play into that conversation. The CGI looked about as real as Stallone's hair plugs, so that just did not work, and the overall casting does not work either. It's just a clunkily made film. Just wait for streaming. But No One Will Save You on Hulu is a very solid sci-fi flick. I'll talk about that more next week. I want to get into our From the Outside In topic. This is a heavier topic, I guess, in many respects. Doesn't mean there's not some fun to be had, but some of the questions are definitely a little darker than others. And the question is, can you separate the art from the artist? And I want to have a real conversation about it, because why or why not? That's the topic. And I should preface this with, this could be a difficult topic for some, as many of these both alleged and proven crimes are triggering for victims of assault and abuse. So I'm just making sure that you are aware of that ahead of time before we get into it. So now, time to discuss all of these douchebags and how they're ruining our entertainment. So let me spin it both ways.
Accused douchebags.
Yeah, some of them.
Cases.
Some of them.
Alleged.
Some are convicted.
Some are convicted.
Some of them fled the country, Troy.
Yeah.
I am aware.
Some of them left in the 70s, never came back, and they're still applauded at the Oscars years later.
What kind of shit is that, Academy?
It doesn't surprise me. They applaud when people smack people on stage. Those people just applaud
maybe
themselves.
Will Smith should have fled the country and not come back.
All right. So let's spin it both ways. Sometimes they think they're doing good, like Drew Barrymore, Jennifer Hudson, Bill Maher. They were trying to bring their teens back to work during the strike. But the internet says that they're not, despite promising to not break strike rules. And so when they relent and say, well, wait, people still say, well, now we know who you are. The damage is done. Your career should be over. And there's people that just basically want to cancel them. So we're kind of going in layers, right? We're starting with these guys, the Drew Barrymores, the Hudsons, the Mars, the people that just want to go back to work during the writer's strike. And they said no, even though they promised to not violate strike rules. What do you think, Amanda? Are these people that you can't separate the art from the artist? Let's start there.
Yeah, I can definitely separate the art from the artist with this. And what's funny about this particular example is the first thing that I said to somebody who brought up the whole Drew Barrymore thing is, I was like, it doesn't matter what she does. People are going to be mad either way. Nobody will ever be happy or satisfied with the way things are done. And that's exactly what happened. She went back on her decision and she said, okay, I hear you. I made a mistake and I'm correcting it. And that still wasn't good enough for people. They were like, well, now we know who she really is. She's done, like just what you were saying, Aaron, that she should be canceled. And I literally had these conversations where I heard people saying this to me. And I'm like, so you're telling me that people are never allowed to right their wrongs? So we give people one chance, they mess it up, and they're never allowed to correct it. That's like that is America. Yeah. But that is like the saddest thing that I've heard, because I at least believe that we all make mistakes, and we should, if we want to have people give us another chance and another opportunity when we make those mistakes, and we take accountability for our mistakes, and we don't provide that, like we would want that. So if we don't provide that back to people, that makes us hypocrites, and nobody is ever going to want to improve themselves or do the right thing.
Yeah, I really think that those people were stuck between a rock and a hard place, because on one hand, they support the writer's strike or not, but on the other hand, they have cast, crew, and people who are all depending on them for their paycheck. And how much longer? And some of those people aren't even involved in any of the strikes. They're just people who work in the background of these shows. So how much longer can they go without letting those people get paid? How much longer can they go without letting those people who aren't involved with the strikes come up with these issues? So I can't really fault them for wanting to go back to work. Bill Maher doesn't need to go back to work. Drew Barrymore doesn't need to go back to work. Jennifer Hudson doesn't need to go back to work. So all they're trying to do is support their crews. And I really can't fault them for what they're doing. So yeah, these people are something that I can definitely separate from the art from the artist, but at the same time, I don't really blame them for what they're trying to do.
There's a lot of people that just keep saying, well, they should pay for their crew. And I don't think that's fair. No. I don't think that's fair. It's not, they're not the ones striking. They're not the ones that make this determination on what the pay scale is. That's the studios. But they're trying to put money back in their pockets. And I don't see why that's not okay. I mean, if they assure them that they're not going to violate strike rules, and they're just talk shows, no offense, but Bill Maher's got a lot of writing segments, but you take those out and it's just discussion of political points. Drew
Right.
Barrymore can easily have a conversation without having it written for her. I mean, she's a natural conversationalist. The View does it every single day, and that's okay. Good Morning America does it every single day. The Today Show does it. Like, all these shows do it every single day. This is where I think with the general populace, a lot of people really get confused about this, because people that seem to be in tune entertainment are all about, we should, hold them accountable, and we should be mad at these people, and they're scabs. I love that term, by the way. Scabs are people that cross picket lines, allegedly. But they get all mad at them. People that don't generally follow entertainment, they're just general everyday people, are like, what is the problem? If they're not writing, who cares? Why is this such a problem for you? Because we're supposed to be unified, but they're not, acting. They're talk show hosts and I think that's where the disconnect is. So it's weird for average America and entertainment watchers, because they seem to be completely polar opposite on this entire topic. I, for one, have no problem with them going back to work and trying to keep their crews paid, because most of the crews are not affiliated with Writers Guild. So they are just losing money. It's not unity. They're not getting anything out of this deal. The caterers, the camera crew, none of them are getting anything out of this except poor. Maybe we should empathize with those people just as much as with the writers sometimes,
I'm with you.
But I mean, even if they're just delivering it off the cuff, I mean, morning news is still written, right? They have news writers,
Yeah,
and then they riff
that's
off
fair.
of that, and then they riff off of that. But like, if I'm Drew
They're
Barrymore,
reading a teleprompter half the time.
yeah, and if I'm Drew Barrymore doing a talk show, even though I'm doing the talk show, I'm not writing it physically down, but I'm now written a script because someone's going to transcribe that script and put it into, the translators and the subtitles and all the closed captioning and everything. So there's still a written document of the show. So it's kind of hard to I didn't write it, but you are doing writing type work on the fly in a way, because you still have to prepare for the episode.
That's a
Even
bit
if
of
I
a reach, because the transcribers and the companies that do the transcribing have nothing to do with the Writers Guild.
But she still has to
They
write
could
her-
easily be outsourcing that.
Yeah.
They,
But she has to
they
write her
absolutely
questions.
are.
She's got to do her
are
interview prep.
outsourcing it.
She does have to. I mean, we do this podcast, it's pretty freeform, except there's a format. And I assume that there would be some kind of structure that there would have to be created. That's about the only writing I can see that I think would interfere with Writers Guild. But again, if they say that they're not going to interfere with I would let them fail at that before I start accosting them over it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like we're supposed to not care about the other people that work on these things. And it's like, if I'm going to care about people, I'm going to care about all of them. I'm not going to care about just the actor. I'm not going to care about just the writer. I have to care about everybody. And there's a whole group of people that never get mentioned that haven't had money in a long time. They live check to check, just like most of America does. It's not fair to them.
I think the challenge with this group of people, though, is that there was a bunch of people that were trying to do things on what was called interim agreements. So you're meeting, you're talking, you're making sure that the production met the requirements of the WGA and SAG in order to get this interim agreement deal done, right? We actually have friends, right? Aaron and I know people that actually have gotten interim agreements done for their projects to be able to distribute in foreign countries. And I think the big thing here is that if Drew Barrymore and Bill Maher and all these people would say, hey, we're going back to work, and it's because we had an interim agreement to do so, then all of this is moot, right? It's the fact that that piece was missing from the conversation. So I think that more education rather than just like, hey, we're going back to work because it's the right thing to do. Because then it's like, because immediately you say it's the right thing to do, opens up floor for discussion of, well, is it the right thing to do? And that's where America jumps in and the cancel culture starts. And
well, here's my thing. I don't like groupthink. I've talked about this before. I really dislike groupthink when I can't have a critical thought about something just because a group of people agree that this is the way to go. Great. If I can't articulate it and discuss it and speak counterpoint to it, if all you want to do is shut me down, or what I have seen online, I call it bullying of other people. If I can't have a critical thought or a critical conversation without it devolving to that, to me, you've lost all reason in your point. If you can't have a discussion about whatever your points are without it basically shouting scab or basically cancel them, or, we shouldn't watch them ever again. We can't forgive them. Drew Barrymore comes forward, says, I'm pulling my show, apologizes, was literally in tears. I mean, she's an actor. I don't know. She could have been acting, but she also could have been genuine. She seems like a pretty genuine person, and that's, a lot of actors do.
They dug into her family's history because her great grandmother or aunt or something was also in the same exact boat.
But doesn't it make it hard to empathize with this particular situation when people react that way? When, so you want this thing that you want, but if someone doesn't do exactly what you say, we're going to bully them into cancellation or destroy their property that they've worked so hard on. I just don't have any sympathy for this. I just don't. That particular behavior. I'm not saying I don't have sympathy for the strike and what they're standing for. I feel like there's a very lost component where we're not supposed to care about all the people that were affected that have nothing to do with the strike.
I think the difference here with these people is that their shows, I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Sure.
Their shows were still carried by networks and studios that were struck companies. I think that was the challenge. The difference when we had the writer's strike back in 2008, when you got things like Dr. Horrible Sing-Along Blog, was because these people wrote non-studio driven things and put it out themselves on YouTube and their own personal websites and things of that nature. So you have this little bit of a gray area where these things are still being put out and distributed by struck companies. And I think that was the main issue with especially Drew Barrymore and Bill Maher, is that these were companies that were literally on the docket for both WGA and SAG. Now, if Drew Barrymore would have said, hey, I'm going to go do my show, but I'm going to do it on a podcast. Because that's exactly what everybody else on Late Night did with the Strike Force 5 podcast, And
they were okay with that.
Completely different.
And they were okay with that.
Yeah.
It's just wild. All right, let's get into the meatier ones, right? Okay, this is the other end. This is still accusations, right? No convictions of anything, just erroneous speculation and victim accounts. You've got Russell Brand. You've got Kevin Spacey's of the world. What about those situations where there aren't any convictions? It's all speculation. And, I know there was the Me Too movement. Some people feel that it should be take victims seriously. Don't believe everybody, take everything to heart, but, vet it. Everybody has a different feeling for that. But in terms of people that have not been convicted of anything, where do you stand on like this whole, can you separate the art from the artist argument?
Well, first of all, I think this is really funny that you mentioned Russell Brand, because I literally on my phone, the minute you said Russell Brand, I got a YouTube push notification from a channel that basically says Russell Brand is not the same person he was 20 years ago. So I just find the timing was really interesting.
If those kinds are true, I don't really care,
Yeah. Well,
who he is today.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that there's a lot of these situations where it was, they did something way back in the past. Someone finally spoke up and is now bringing all this stuff to light. And yeah, it's horrible and it's wrong, but it should go through due process. And until it goes through due process, people shouldn't be ostracized because they were accused of doing something, because maybe not all the facts are there. Maybe it's partially true. You don't know until there's a lawsuit and a jury and all of that stuff. At the same time, Amanda knows this, being in HR, right? We do these things called investigations. And sometimes it's better for the investigation for the person that was accused to also maybe take a leave of absence and step away. One, because we don't know what's actually true and it might actually harm the company. But two, it's also for the person being accused's best interest, because it helps them be able to be isolated and not have to deal with the public shaming and public spotlight of what's going to happen. And so at the end of the day, I think in these situations where there is no conviction, you just have to wait for the conviction. Do you stop watching this stuff? I think that just depends on your own moral code at that point. But they shouldn't be canceled because there's no cancellation gavelled, sealed, delivered by, the bailiff from the jurors.
This is where it starts getting into a harder area for me, because it depends on the media, or not the media, but it depends more on what it is that I can't deal with them anymore. And I don't want to be that person that says I can't watch anything that this person is in because of whatever it is they did, but then that also punishes everybody else involved with it. It also depends on what it is that they did. Kevin Spacey, I have trouble with Kevin Spacey now. Can I still watch The Ref? I can try to get past The Ref. Can I still watch Bug's Life? I can kind of get past it all in Bug's Life, but it's hard. It's an actual work to sit there and put it aside. Russell Brand's somebody that I never really liked and never really trusted to begin with, and I can I watch something that he's in? If he is the main character, I've never really been able to do it, but if he's not, then yeah, I can probably watch it. So it just gets tougher because it depends on what the crime is, and how they're being blamed for it, and then where they are in the process, and how many people are stepping forward.
Yeah, I would concur with some of that. I guess we all kind of have our own quote unquote investigation that we're doing, right? If it's somebody we care about.
Everybody's a detective, right?
Everyone's a detective. So everyone's trying to figure out, who is this person who's making the claim? What are their motives? What are the motives for the person who's defending themselves to, not take any responsibility or anything? And for me personally, I'm also on like a case by case basis, I guess, for these things. Like it'll depend on the context of the allegations, how many people, like John said, how many people are coming forward. Obviously, as you get more reports from individuals who have no connection to each other, who are validating, this is same thing happened to me, same thing happened to me. Oh yeah, that happened to me too. Then it starts to be like, but you can only get so many people to be inaccurate or have what's the word? Coincidence before it just happens to, maybe that's real. So for me, it just depends on what the context
like Bill Cosby
is.
When it was just theory for a while, and it's like, that's woman number 42. Wait, what?
Yeah.
At some point, you just got to go, it's probably just Cosby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's your favorite line from Justified about the asshole or whatever?
If you meet an asshole in the morning, you met an asshole. If you meet assholes all day, you're the asshole.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that same philosophy. So for me, it just depends. Like Russell Brand, if we're talking about him, I kind of always felt like he was a little sus. So I'm not shocked.
Yeah.
Like none of the allegations shocked me. And that's the part that's maybe like a little more concerning.
Can we speak?
Is that we were,
no,
we were all kind of like, yeah, that checks out.
Can we just speak to that for a second? Because I've got this theory. I don't know how accurate this is, right? But he got cleaned up and everything, and then he just started going off and doing his own little YouTube show and all that stuff, and started spouting off against the deep state and how all of these things are going to collectively, like he's speaking against. He's very broad about what he says he's speaking against. It never really goes into any detail. It's very broad, and he's just like, and they're going to get you as soon as you start speaking to power. They're going to come after you, and then as soon as this comes out, he ran out to preemptively shoot it down because this is them coming after me and because I've said things against them, whatever they are, this coalition of men, and people love conspiracies. So of course there's all these people go like, that's why they're coming after Russell. So when it came out, they're like, of course he wouldn't do it. And I like his opinions and I like his thoughts and I'm like, okay, like, did you even check out the accusations? Because like some real shit there, man. Like, yeah. I'm not saying they're real or not real. I'm just saying like there's real information there that you should check out. And he does have a history of like really negative behavior, and he has a history of some very shady things that maybe you should look into. I'm just saying, I don't know. And I'm with John. I didn't care about him before. I'm with Amanda. Didn't care about him before. I like one movie he's in, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and I'll be able to watch that just fine.
And he doesn't have a significant. He has a significant role-ish, but he's a douche not enough that it's about him.
He's a douche
exactly. So that was my thing. Is like he's always been a douchebag.
But
I'm actually more surprised that he's trying to be like, I didn't do all this. Like, that's more surprising to me than
maybe
that feels a little off-brand.
Hey, innocent until proven guilty. I do believe in that. It just for me, I wasn't going to seek out anything with Russell Brand anyway. And it does matter if you like the person. I find that if there's not a conviction, it's easier for me to justify to myself that it's not proven yet. So maybe the person that I've admired or enjoyed or liked, maybe they're innocent. I had that with Kevin Spacey for a while, where I was like, you know what? There's nothing proven here. He's been one of my favorite actors for, a decade and a half or something. I'm not going to cast my fandom to the wind just because, a couple accusations come out. But then it just keeps piling up. And I'm like, okay, at some point it becomes the Cosby effect where I got to be like,
right,
maybe this dude's got something going on. Now, he's never been convicted of anything. In fact, he's actually gone to trial multiple times and won every time. Even civil cases, which is hard to do. That's usually only 51% proven versus, the entire jury. So, hey, I don't know. Maybe Kevin Spacey can make a comeback. I honestly don't know the answer to that. But I can still enjoy his movies up to that point. He hasn't really been able to make any sense. I just find him weird because he does weird YouTube Christmas videos now every year, and I don't know what that's about.
Now, if he gets convicted, though, at a certain point, say it was a issue that was in 2002, right? Do you cancel everything from 2002 forward and everything in the 90s is still okay to watch? Or you just cancel them outright completely?
Well, I mean, we could probably just segue to the next one, right? The convictions. So what happens when that happens? I mean, like Danny Masterson, perfect example. Does that mean that now that he's been convicted of rape multiple times, could you watch that 70s show if you were a fan of that?
Well, he's a bad example. He's a bad example because he's not somebody that I watched a lot of his stuff, and I didn't even watch that 70s show. You want to yell at me for that, Aaron?
No, I'm okay with that. Well, let's go back to Troy's original question, which was Kevin Spacey.
But there's also Bill Cosby, right?
Oh yeah, he was convicted, but then he had his conviction overturned. So, technically,
whether they overturn it or not, I
feel pretty confident on that one.
What's that?
I feel pretty confident in that one.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident in that one too. And that's one of the ones that breaks my heart the most because he was America's dad for such a long time. And there were things that he did that I would listen to on a regular basis. Bill Cosby himself takes the whole stand-up routine takes on a different meaning now. The Cosby Show, whenever he starts opening his mouth, everything takes on a different meaning. And that's when it starts becoming a real problem.
He also, what I think is often overlooked, and I hate to say this because now he's seen it in such a negative light, which he should be, but he changed the perception of Black America for the remainder of America. And that is something, I mean, I can say that as a white person because I witnessed many, many people change their view of people, Black people in particular, because of that show. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. It's just very factual. And
leaving kids with Fat Albert.
Yeah, even kids. He had a way of reaching out to middle white America and kind of, just showing the Black struggles in a different light that white people could relate to in many ways that made them more empathetic, I would say.
Right.
And did, I'm not going to say more than the civil rights movement. That's ridiculous. But in terms of entertainment, it was the equivalent to the civil rights movement in entertainment. He really got that needle moving. He was the most popular sitcom star on television for years. And he was a Black man. And that just didn't happen up until that point. And all of that's washed away over this. All of that washed away.
That's the sad part of it. Somebody who was so capable of reaching out and touching so many people and changing so many hearts.
And literally did.
And
wow.
All right. Well,
I don't even mean to make that as a joke. I mean, like, he legitimately did.
You didn't mean it as a joke. I just took it as one, and that makes me worse. So.
That makes me worse.
Wow.
And this is where we just asked John to be quiet for a minute.
The
so
sad part about
say anything stupid.
No one needed to ask me. I stopped dead in my tracks.
We're all looking at your picture going, don't do it, John. Don't say anything.
No, I can't. I'm not going to.
All right. Good job. We're proud of you.
See, the sad thing about Cosby is that I remember being a kid and like the most magical part of the day was watching picture pages.
Oh man.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah.
Like everybody, like there was like a thing where you could actually like save up stuff to actually get your own, what was it? Ichabod. What was the name of the? It was oh my
pen.
gosh!
You're talking about the pen, right?
Yeah. What was the name of the pen? Ichabod, the marker, Mortimer.
Who the hell named this?
If you say enough words, eventually they will make sense. Yes. But yeah, Mortimer Ichabod marker. Yep.
The picture pages pen, and there was a thing where you could like save up to actually get your own picture pages pen, and I'm like, that is something that I did, and I got one, and it was like this is like the greatest thing since like owning a Voltron or a Transformers when you're a kid. Yeah, or Star Wars action
Nerd.
figures. You
we're
had
all,
them too.
we're all nerds,
Shut up.
man.
No, I never had it. I was in another country at the time.
That's right, because the U.S. came in and raided it and stole it from you.
That's
did.
right.
I did. I'm a nerd.
But I mean, like that's sad. You know,
It's all sad that, and no matter how much good you do, it can easily be erased by you doing, like a lot of good can be erased by a single bad, if the bad is bad enough. And the bad was bad enough. Sure, there was a lot more than just one, too, but that's the reality is it doesn't matter how much good you do if you can't control the bad. And
the bad doesn't even have to be that bad. It only has to be.
It doesn't, especially now.
Yeah, bad enough for enough people to jump on the bandwagon.
Mm-hmm.
That goes back to what we were saying about Drew Barrymore and Jennifer Hudson and Bill Maher. Like, it doesn't even have to be that bad. And in some respects, what they did wasn't even bad because they're just trying to make sure people get paid.
That's all perspective. There's not perspective when it comes to convictions. And for me, like that's a no-go. If I know that person or multiple people were involved in something horrendous and they were convicted, now all of the doubt that could have been in my mind is completely erased. Now I'll say that I don't have the same thing that Aaron does where, you know, if I like them enough that I can, you know, try to like talk myself out of it. I have those moments in my head where I'm like, I create doubt and then I have to position myself back and say, okay, but many rapists, abusers, murderers, etc., are people that you never expected. It's always people, oh, he was so nice. I would have never imagined that. You know how exhausting that is to hear? So I take that and I remove it. And my perfect example is Chris Hardwick. Now his was, you know, on a much less, yeah. And that like tore me apart. I was huge Chris Hardwick fan, huge. Like I remember I went to 2 of his comedy specials back to back in the same weekend, in a city in a state I didn't even live in because I liked him that much. And when that came out, I was like, all right, well, there seems to be enough validity for me to question it. And when I start to question it, I have to take myself back and say, am I going to do more harm than good by doing this? And am I doing this for my own reasons, or am I doing this because I genuinely believe that this person is innocent? Now, the flip side of that is Lizzo. Like, Lizzo's gotten a lot of heat lately for sexual harassment of people on her team. That's one where I'm like, okay, I have some skepticism, not because I love her, but just because you hear so many conflicting sides from supporters and defenders, you know what I mean, for her, not even just what she's saying. And so that's where some of that comes into play, where you're like, okay, now I don't even know where I stand because it's too much of a gray area. And once we get into conviction zone, nah, I'm done. I'm good.
I mean,
I'm good.
Yeah,
Jackie, you can get yourself your coat. I'm out of here.
Once I'm in a conviction, that's a different story. But I mean, you know, like the Kevin Spacey thing, what I'm saying, that was accusations. If there are accusations, I can talk myself out of it. And it isn't trust me, if there's enough of them, I'm like, well, I guess I was wrong about that one. I was, you know, I always say, and everyone's always said, never meet your heroes. And there's a reason. I mean, I was a massive Mel Gibson fan for a long time.
Ooh, that's another one. Yeah.
Yeah. But
that's a rough one.
But it's tough because, you know, he's been on tape saying awful things, but not really doing awful things. It's really been words, right? His words are awful. And in several instances when he was drunk and he's yelling at his ex and everything else. But in terms of actually doing anything, he hasn't really had any major issues. And to me, words are a lot different than actions. You know, I don't
even words that carry a lot of harm behind them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've look, you reap what you sow. You're going to deal with repercussions, and you know, if you say things offensive, you're going to, you know, certain people are going to cast you aside, and that's their right. That's their right. to do that. I just am very adamant that I don't think, when it comes to words, I think people want to use those to shut you down. And rather than having I think you should use those moments to be teachable moments to really have a good conversation about why they're so hurtful. And unfortunately, that's not what people do. If you say the wrong word, if you say it accidentally, or if you say it directly and intentionally, they just want you gone. That's the answer, right? You're canceled. You're out of here. You said this on the air. You said this to a cop. You said this on a TV show. But other people can use them as long as it's representative of their community. Whatever the word is, there's multiple ones. It's not just one word. And I just think if a word's that horrible, let's just not say it across the board. Let's say that that's a word that we should just cast out because it's too hurtful for certain people, and we should just be respectful of that. Otherwise, let's have a conversation about why it's hurtful to them. Because I think maybe, I know a lot of people don't say certain words because they know they can't, but they don't really know why they're hurtful. So why don't we, instead of shutting the world down, have an opportunity to have a conversation to discuss why that person said that, or not even why they said it, but what the meaning is that really is so hard for other people to accept. Why it's so...
Start with educating.
Yes, education. Mm-hmm. What happened to instead of just shutting everybody down and we have to cancel them and I'm never watching anything you do again. I'm sorry, it's a word. I mean, Riggs said some crazy shit and I still enjoyed those movies. So I just don't correlate those two. Those two are not connected to me. One's a person, one's an actor. Does an action that hurts someone? That's a different story. A word is not something I'm going to not watch something that person was in again.
Some words can have an impact depending on how they're used. They can take their words and make action with them. But I mean, to part of your point, I think that it's educating. It's also, we still have to allow people to have their opinions, even if they're really shitty opinions.
I agree with that.
If they're not taking action with those words to hurt other people, sometimes there's just nasty people out there. And if they refuse to accept what education you're trying to provide them and helping them understand other perspectives and where people are coming from, if they're that closed-minded that they're not willing to consider how what they're saying impacts others, then you just stay in your corner, bud. Like, you can have your really gross opinion, but just don't come near me with it. And that's fine.
Absolutely. And in fact, there's people right now that, based on what I just said a few minutes ago, are already screaming at the radio or texting or sending us an email or something saying, well, you just want the license to say this word or that word. And it has nothing to do with that. But they just want to say anything that's going to shut me up. And I don't like that response to it. I feel like it's very important, especially in an era and a world full of language and diversity, that we should always have those conversations as to why is that hurtful? Why should that person be silenced forever because they said that word? Why is that word so impactful? Why did it hurt so much?
Let's take a recent one then. Let's take Gina I cannot talk tonight.
Gina Carano?
Carano. Like, she said words, right? She
shared a meme. Is what she did, right?
She did the meme and she did the whole, she changed her pronouns.
Right. She was doing a mocking thing.
Yeah, doing the mocking thing. So it's like, it was pretty bad.
I'm not on a bandwagon with that one.
So here's where Aaron's point comes in. Like, but
those are words.
Should she be completely ostracized for that? Or should she just have like, hey, here's a couple of educational hours, some community service, some understanding of why this is important, so you can at least see the point of view. And then as long as you do the retribution, like, hey.
I don't think she had to do retribution either.
Or don't support them. You can say, I don't support you.
Yes.
And that is perfectly fine for you to say, I don't agree with your morals and values, but you're not hurting anybody. Like, you're not there are mean, cruel people out there. They'll mock for your weight. They'll mock for the way you look. They'll mock for your hair. Is this like a very unfortunate addition to that category? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But people are going to be nasty and mean. You can not support them without also saying you shouldn't be able to live and survive and like have your own income and survive as a human being because you have an opinion that I don't agree with.
Well,
and you
yeah.
say things that I don't agree with and that are really mean and nasty.
What's funny about her situation is, I mean, and I, as a personality, I like Gina Carano, I guess. I mean, she always seems very sweet to her fans, and she seems like a very kind person. By all accounts of anyone I've ever met or seen online that has talked to her or worked with her in the past, has said she's a very sweet person. Do I think she's a very intelligent person? Probably not, based on some of the stuff she shares and some of the things, the fact that she's going on Ben Shapiro's talk show to get her point across. But a lot of people wouldn't even talk to her and let her share her thoughts on it. And she gave, I thought, at least a reasonable explanation as to where she was coming from, that she didn't understand how hurtful it was at the time, but no one would ever give her a chance because she apparently seemed to lean right. So no matter what, they just wanted to shut her down, right? That was the deal. I don't think that's the right way to handle that. I think that's the kind of time where you have an education and let someone come on and have a real discussion. And if they don't want to, that's on them, but you got to give them the opportunity, because that's how everybody learns. Their fan base can learn something from that. Why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you want, I think she just she was trying to be thought provoking or whatever she thought she was doing, and made a
She thought
bad
it was
call.
cute. She thought it was funny.
She made a bad call.
Society told her, nah, girl, we ain't with you. I mean,
Right.
she had a lot of supporters still.
But it was
Do
bullying.
I think she is gross?
But it was
Yes.
just like bullying to me.
Yeah, they bullied her for sure. To me though, you put it out there to the point where you're mocking. You're not just voicing your opinion. You're like outwardly trying, like, ha ha ha, screw you, middle fingers up. Like, you have to understand, if you get into that battle ring, people are coming for you, and you have to be ready to defend yourself, girl. I know this is ironic. But I'm not a fan of her because of that. Sure. Like, I think she's nasty for doing that. I think that was super malicious and unnecessary. So I'm not going to support her. But am I going to ask for her entire career to be removed? Nah.
I mean, Star Wars kicked her out of a whole universe. A whole galaxy said, get out. And that just feels extreme.
Back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the studios used to do a thing where they handled more of what a actor did. More of an actor's life was controlled by the studios, to the extent of they used to cart out different actors for their movies just long enough for them to be seen, and then take them out the back door, and then take them to some cottage in the middle of nowhere so that they can't speak to anyone, deal with anyone, or mess with anyone. So I'd be kind of nice if we went back to that.
I don't think there's actually a cottage that they would take people out to, but they controlled their careers is essentially what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. I just don't want somebody writing a letter and go, there's no real cottage, John. That's not a thing that happened. There was a blacklist, though. That was a real thing. Or are you saying there is a cottage? Is this another conspiracy theory? Maybe I just
There's a cabin.
There are certain actors that used to who like to go hunting or go fishing or whatever, and they would take them to a very nice cabin in the middle of nowhere just to get them away from everyone.
Interesting. All right. So, why is this a struggle for some, and it's not even an issue for others? Like, some people cannot get past whatever, let's just say, accusations. Because I think it's easier when it's a crime. Like Harvey Weinstein, nobody wanted to see him anyway. I think he was an executive in most of his movies. He wasn't hands-on.
Not somebody you wanted to look at before anyway.
Yeah. And you got Bill Cosby, so, it makes it hard to watch Cosby stuff, et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes to accusations, that's where it really depends on the severity of what the accused is being accused of, and also what people personally think of so-and-so. So why do you think it's a struggle for some, but it's not an issue for others?
The one consistency across everyone's line seems to be, I should say, the majority of people's lines, is you don't cross the line with children, like little children. And I'm not even talking about young adults, teenagers, even preteens. I'm talking about little kids. That's like a do not cross or we kill you type of line for people across the board. So I can at least respect that we have common ground, that's just not okay. Like, pedophilia is inexcusable.
Agreed.
But
I
everyone
think
else,
most of these things are inexcusable, but that's just my opinion.
well, yeah. But everyone has like a different line otherwise of like what's permissible for this person to do before I can't see their face anymore, or I see people differently because of their actions off screen. For some people, it's like, I don't care what you did at all. As long as your work is good, I'm just taking it for the work as a whole and I'm subtracting that out. And I literally don't understand how people can do that.
Right? There's enough stuff out there. You watch plenty of great things that don't have, rapists in them.
Yeah.
As a rule.
Yeah. But for me, it's like, so everyone has a different line. Mine is obviously, I have my lines. You have to go a shorter distance to cross my line than maybe Aaron's per se. So I think just everybody has that based on their own experiences, what they deem, more, I don't even want to say acceptable, but when that threshold is pushed too far.
Yeah, mine's probably very similar to you cross this line, you die. Oh, I like that person. I'm going to back up one more step. You cross this line, you die. God damn it, I really like that. It's Kurt Russell. You cross this line, you die. And it just
don't even speak it into existence, Aaron.
It would honestly, I wouldn't do the podcast for a very long time. I'll be honest. it would just break me if you tell me something bad about that man. Magical. All right, so what's been your biggest struggle? An actor or filmmaker you absolutely love that now you feel is a bit ruined for you?
I mean, Cosby's hard, because it was like you grew up, man. Like, hey. You picture pages and Jello pudding pops, and he was like America's dad, before the Tanners came onto the screen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like that one's a challenge. Spacey is an interesting one because you just don't know what's going on with that guy. But man, like your formidable years, right? In the 90s, like all the movies that Spacey did, like I love them, right? The Ref and Usual Suspects and Outbreak and Seven and Time to Kill and LA Confidential and Negotiator, Bugs Life, American Beauty, Pay It Forward, K-Pax. I love K-Pax. I think that's a great movie. And it's like, I don't know. I've already seen the movies. So if I go back and watch them again, does it matter? Like I've already seen them. I've already done the supporting. And there's other, like we said, there's other people that have supported those movies, in the actors that were in there, and the writers that made it, and the creators that did it, and the camera people, and the set people, and the special effects. I mean, you're not supporting Kevin Spacey, you're supporting film. You just happen to be in the movie.
Yeah.
House of Cards, where he's like the big thing driving the thing, that's a little bit more of a challenge, probably.
If I'd say one that really got, because Kevin Spacey's the obvious one, right? That one really stuck with me. And still does. I still struggle with it to this day because he was literally probably a top 5 actor for me up until that moment. I'm like, God, I just never.
So versatile.
Just one of the best actors of all time. Even with having to stop work 15 years ago, or whatever it was, still one of the best to ever do it. But there was one that still to this day I have a real hard time with, and that's the Mark Wahlberg assault. You guys know about this one? This was like years ago when he was young. Yeah. The
whole world knows about that.
It was basically a race hate crime. And, he assaulted 2 Vietnamese American men with like a big stick in his fist. And one of them was, I think, blinded, if I remember right. And it was just one of those things because I grew up in a very poor neighborhood, predominantly black. So to me, I saw a lot of race crime. And in my mind, that's something that's very hard for people to walk away from, to change their mentality. Once you're that much of a racist, it's hard for me to see you coming out of that. You know what I mean? And I know it's a weird thing to say, but it's just like any kind of trauma, right? Unless you go through years of therapy, you won't be cured of this. This is kind of like a mentality. So every time I see Mark Wahlberg, even if there's something that I like, there's always a part of me that has a hard time watching it because I think, this guy is secretly hateful. Like he hates minorities. But then you see him do movies with minorities, and I'm like, maybe it was a fluke. Maybe he was young. Maybe he was trying to show off to his friends or something like that. Whatever it was. But I mean, it's a messed up case that has never sat right with me since I learned about it.
I don't know that I have one that was just a little bit ruined for me. I feel like they either totally get ruined or they're still on the okay. But one that stands out to me, and again, I know that the allegations aren't, as mortifying as some other allegations, but Joss Whedon.
Oh yeah, that
broke my itty bitty heart.
Yeah, it breaks mine
to
too.
find out, like, with these shows that I grew up loving and were like a foundation for me. And, I had put him on a pedestal for so many years.
Same.
As this guy, this man who's like doing great things for women, for really cool, awesome, badass women. And then you find out like, he's kind of a scumbag. Like his entire team is like, yeah, he sucks. We'd never work with him again. And that news, that revelation was like, damn. So all those years that I thought that there was this like amazing creative energy happening and things were so wonderful, these people were being in some levels tormented, having to deal with really, uncomfortable or embarrassing or mortifying experiences. And we all had no idea.
And if you remember when that happened, Alan Tudyk suffered the same fate as Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher when they wrote those letters basically saying that Danny Masterson was a good guy and blah, 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 blah. We never had a problem with
Screw
them.
them, by the way.
Yeah.
Screw them.
I totally on board with that.
They're done.
Yeah. It's sad. They basically wrote letters, for him to get leniency on sentencing.
After he was already, it was established that, yes, he's convicted of this, but what is he actually going to be sentenced? They were like, oh, well, we know he's a rapist, but please be nice because he was always nice to us.
Yeah. They said that they wrote this before that, but either way, you knew what he was up for, so you knew he would have to be convicted for these to be used. So
it's like saying like, hey, Jeffrey Dahmer was my neighbor. He was always nice to me.
Right?
Wasn't it? Yes.
He was always having people come over to the house. He was always entertaining people. He seemed like a cool dude.
He was such a great host.
God.
I always heard him having a great time.
And they're literally, they're no longer, but they were on a board for, sexual assault survivors. Like, you're literally on a cause for this. And you're basically saying, hey, give this guy a break because he's our friend. But Alan Tudyk had a similar thing because he was defending Joss Whedon, saying, I never had any of these experiences. He was always a wonderful guy to work with for me. And he just got lambasted by everybody. And this is what, again, where I think, because again, Joss Whedon wasn't convicted of anything. So now I feel it's unfair.
And it was less, a violent in nature.
This is really just a really awful boss. This is much, but he was just attacked and he, deleted his tweet and he retracted it and all this other stuff. And it's just like, this is where we just want to be part of a mob, apparently. It seems like in today's world. We just want to be part of a mob. But that was just an interesting, side note on the whole Joss Whedon thing. But I agree with you. That broke my heart, too. Still does. Honestly, I miss his writing so much.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, damn, I hate how much I used to like you. And how much deep down I still like you. You know what I mean? Like as a creative, I have so much adoration for your work, for what you're capable of. It just really sucks that you're not a good human being.
And we totally have had a Firefly reboot by now. He wouldn't be such a dick. John, what about you? Biggest struggle?
I think for me, the biggest struggle has been somebody like Louis C.K. And it's more
the guy that jerks off to a plant in front of people,
in front of women. And
I know, but I'm
in
just
a room with them.
I wasn't saying it to justify it. I'm just saying like that's how fucking weird he is. And now you have people trying to justify it, like Dave Chappelle.
Well, not only are they trying to justify it, but people are sweeping it all under the rug. And there's people who are now, I know people who got all excited because he was at a comedy club here in town. And they were like, it's Louis C.K. I'm like, how are you going to go see him? And well, he's funny. Maybe, but like, here's all the stuff that he did. But
he's also gross.
I don't. I have trouble with it because I just don't understand why people are giving him any sort of space or a space to go ahead and do his thing at. I don't get it. It makes me angry. He locked female comedians in a room with him and did those sorts of things. He didn't really touch anybody, but still, that's still a traumatizing thing to have to go through for anybody. It doesn't have to be. I don't want to see Louis C.K. do that. I mean, come on. Can you imagine how horrifying that is?
Yeah, I think he's unfunny as it is. That's less right. Damn, that's a wild one.
Yeah, that one was sad because I liked him as a comedian too. I thought he was, decently funny. And when that happened, I was just like, washing my hands of this dude. Ugh.
So is there anyone besides that who we've talked about, Kevin Spacey and Cosby, that you still revisit their films despite whatever their notoriety was?
The only one that we talked briefly about him just now, but the only one that I can revisit still is maybe Joss Whedon, because there's so many things that he's done that I can get into and I can appreciate because of what they were and what they stand for, despite of him at this point. Not because of him, but despite of him, they've got these great fandoms that you can get into that I can totally get past, and he's the only one at this point that I can do that with.
I'm about to watch a movie with Amber Heard, a screener. This is
Ew.
hang on. This is a challenge to myself because she has a movie coming out in the middle of October. I'll review it in a couple weeks on the show. But they sent the screener link, and I'm like, wow, it's Amber Heard. I don't want Amber Heard. And I just thought I should challenge myself as a critic to be fair and see if it really affects my enjoyment to watch it based on the situation. Because it really just depends on where you land on that whole case, right? And
well, she wasn't great before the case.
No, I don't disagree with you, but I want to,
especially as an actress.
But I'm gonna do that.
It's rough when you're not a good actress and then you do something gross. Like, why would we go back to you?
Well,
you weren't good to begin with.
I'm going to review it fairly, but
good for you.
Yeah, but on the same token, even though I feel Johnny Depp is so much more in the clear these days, from that whole situation, I don't think it was ever really fair how his career went over that whole situation either.
Oh no, he got so much stink on him because of it that it's hurt him in many ways.
Yeah. So even before that trial, I still revisited Johnny Depp movies, and I had no problem. I watched this new stuff and I had no problem with it because to me nothing was really proven in a court of law, and I just felt like whenever it comes into a relationship thing, there's a lot of he said, she said there, and it just becomes very tricky, muddy waters. That until there's something actually proven in a court of law, it's very tricky.
One that I hate watch, where I'm like, oh, you really suck as a human, but I like your stuff. Chevy Chase.
Nobody likes him at all in Hollywood.
He's apparently a terrible human being, and he's also the same person who's funny. Like, yeah, I'm fine being a terrible human being. I'm not changing.
Yeah.
And it's like, ugh, you suck, but you've been in a lot of stuff that's really good. And that's unfortunate.
It feels like at this point, every 6 months or a year, he does an interview where he comes out and says something even worse. And I'm like, God. And I still love your movies from the 80s. Oh. And I hate that I still love him, but I
articles from 7 to 9 hours ago about him. So I apparently something
it's
recent.
The cycle time. It's the time. Bill Murray, same thing. I mean, a lot of people are saying that he's kind of a douchebag. In many respects, some people love him. Some people think he's a douchebag. But nothing really concrete out there. So he's still somebody I don't love Bill Murray, but I like a lot of his stuff.
It's also the problem that people apply their own perspective to someone else's perspective.
How do you mean?
To you, Bill Murray might be a dick, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to somebody else, Bill Murray might be perfectly fine.
Sure.
Because we're all living in our own realm of perspectiveness. So I think we just need to be open to they're just a person.
And Troy's just like, I'm going to make up some words and see what happens. I'm going to roll with them.
Exactly right.
If you say them confidently, people think they're real.
I don't hang out with him personally. I don't have coffee with him. I don't have an opinion of him one way or the other. He's an actor and I watch his movies. That's the bubble of space that I know Bill Murray in.
And that's honestly where more of us should probably live in terms of most celebrities, right? We should just, I think too often we become fans and we put them on a little pedestal and we start elevating them. And I was thinking about this recently because I was watching, oh God, what is it on Disney Plus? Is it Limit with Chris Hemsworth? The Limits or something like that. It's a documentary where he's going through different phases he's looking at different obstacles. Like this one was about his health and things like that. He's just looking at different things and he's kind of showing him trying to tackle those things. Mortality is one. It's like deeper topics. And it's a really good docuseries and I really recommend people check it out. But as I'm watching it, I'm watching it going, wow, Chris Hemsworth is a really good guy, like just a genuinely good guy, and I think he's very charming, and what a great guy he must be. He's got Hugh Jackman vibes and all this stuff. And as I got to the end of it, I'm reminded that, oh, he's an actor. He's an entertainer. I don't know how much of this is real and how much of this isn't. And do I really want to put myself in a position where years from now I find out what a horrible person he was secretly and I'm just devastated? So why don't I just enjoy this for what it is and move on? And I'm trying to do a better job of that, just because I'm tired of having my heart broken. Okay. Well, we asked whole listeners if they can separate art from artists. And here's what we had a whole poll on it. And here's what we have. 2% said, no. Once they're soured in my mind, I'm done. 2% said, no, they cannot separate the art from the artist. That's it. That's interesting. 32% said, yes, absolutely, I can separate. So they have no problem separating. They can watch whatever, and they don't really care what the people did. 66% say they struggle with it based on the severity of the crime or accusation. So it feels like that's kind of where most of us are living. Is that fair? Really just depends on the severity.
Yep. I can agree with that.
Yeah, even for me.
Okay, so we've got some listener comments, and we're just going to each pick one. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Tanya Marie. She just went for it, so I'm going to mention this one. Can I separate it? Yes. Am I willing to? No. I will not give my time, my money, etc. to an entertainer or person who is immoral or a criminal. It is our responsibility as a society or a community to hold each person or each other responsible for their actions. Even if you really like them, think they're cute, in a great movie, make great music, whatever they do, if they were a normal person, say a baker, and they were found guilty of being a pedophile, would you continue to buy bread from their store, or would you take your money to a different baker? I personally am not giving my money to that person. I find that behavior despicable and would rather go without than eat bread by a child molester. I don't want a person like that in my community, and I'm not going to support them. I wouldn't be unkind to them, but I'm not going to be nice to them either. For their best interest, it would be better that they stay away from me.
Hell yeah, preach it, girl. Hell yeah.
I mean, when you put it in that perspective, if it was someone in your neighborhood and say a Russell Brand was your neighbor and they were accused of these things, would you want to go to the cookout with them? Would you want to leave your wife alone at the cookout with them?
No, I don't want to live in the neighborhood with them.
Yeah. I'm not letting anyone eat the chili either.
I want to live in the neighborhood because I'm pretty sure it's a really nice neighborhood. He's rich. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Amanda, you go.
All right. So I'll read this one for Ruthie Rink, who brings up the, I don't know, elephant in the room, the one that most people are on board with getting rid of.
Okay.
She says, I can't do Roman Polanski, mainly because I read the court transcript. He was convicted and he fled. I tried to watch one of his movies after I made these discoveries, and although I managed to get through it, I felt icky. Probably a combination of the movie being awful and him being awful. Otherwise, it's really a case-by-case thing for me. It just depends.
100%. I saw Chinatown before I knew what Roman Polanski was, and once I knew all about that story and how he was convicted and he fled and he's never been back to America since, I've never watched a Roman Polanski movie since. Not any of them. And I will never. I will not support him.
Yeah, I have the same trouble with the director and creator of Jeepers Creepers. I can't, as much as I enjoyed those movies for being great horror movies, I can't go back to them.
Because he was a convicted child molester.
Yep.
And also the thing that bothers me about this particular instance, which is why I brought it back up, is because this is a man who was convicted and never served his time that he was supposed to give to the justice system. Like, that was supposed to be, okay, you do a wrong thing, now you get to serve this punishment. And he was like, nah, I'm rich, I'll be gone. And he's just gotten away with it. The fact that he's gotten away with it makes me spiteful.
Yeah, it really, really does suck. I mean, it's just, there's no other way to word it. I can't fathom. And how Hollywood has continued to applaud him year after year after year after year until recently. I mean, they're a little bit more negative now because, it's a different world. We've finally evolved. I will never forget him winning Best Director at the Oscars not too many years ago. And I think it was The Piano. I'm sorry, I don't remember the movie he won for, but he wasn't there, obviously, because he's chicken shit, coward. But they all stood up, gave him a standing ovation. And I was just ashamed of everyone in that room. Just ashamed that they would actually, because he's an artist. Okay. He still did a horrible thing. John, what do you got? Well, the director you're talking about was Victor Salva, by the way, if you didn't know.
Right.
That's the director's name of Jeepers Creepers, and he was a convicted child molester who then got to make movies in Hollywood.
Ugh. Tabitha Grace Chalice has come here to say, working with someone in Hollywood, I've come to learn that everyone's a bit of an a-hole. I can't watch some things with people I've worked with because it's too triggering, because those people have never been held accountable. On the most part, though, I don't believe in boycotting in general. I love Joss Whedon, I love Buffy and Firefly. I'll still watch them. I don't think folks should boycott, but I do think that there should be pressure to create a safer workplaces to avoid abuses of power.
Yeah, agreed.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Aaron said this several times throughout the years that I've been doing this podcast with him, that somehow Hollywood is way behind on the times when it comes to safe workplaces.
And I don't understand it.
Yeah, totally do not understand that. Finally, Becky Trumbo said, it's not even the severity, but I struggle depending on the piece or the moment. I still love the Cosby Show, but the second Cliff pounces on Claire, I'm out.
Yeah.
If someone is known for being rude on set or a jerk in the name of art, I have little interest in that art, whatever the medium. That pulls me out more than crime, which is weird and maybe not great. But Drew Barrymore, I wonder how much working on her show plays into her sobriety and mental health. Many artists need their work in order to keep them going. I worry about that with the strike and give her a pass because of that reason.
That's a really interesting point.
That's a really
I like
smart
that point a lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even think of that.
Go, Becky.
I mean, it's valid, right?
It is. I mean, it is. We all. I mean, if you think about, and let's take aside you're going on vacation or something, but you are sick, or you have COVID and you're not showing symptoms, so you just have to sit at home, can't be around anybody. Mm-hmm. You are limited in being able to do what you like to do, and let's say that you love your job. To not be able to go to that to get your reprieve, to be able to maintain even a routine, especially for addicts, that's a big thing. So that's a really interesting point that she brought up.
Yeah, like my family is probably more addicts with alcoholism. I didn't get the gene from that perspective, but the addict gene is probably still in the blood somewhere. And even for me, like I would say, like I took depression meds for a long time. And when I started cycling, then like the runner's high that you get from cycling kind of like subsides that depression med need. But if I don't cycle, I know that I'm going to be in a worse place mentally than I was if I was cycling. So I can totally understand that, where like if I'm going to throw myself into my work as a distraction, like that's something I can totally resonate with.
I totally understand that, man. Okay, well, I think that does it. Quite a heavy topic. You think we covered it pretty well? Yeah? Well, no? I don't know. You guys tell us.
We did it okay, Justice, hopefully.
Well, you can,
and if we didn't, the listeners did.
Yeah, you can email feedback on this if you want to at feedback@thehollywoodoutsiders.com, and we might read it on a future episode. Rate and subscribe us on your preferred podcast app, and of course, let us know what you thought about the episode. It's easier on social media, so at Buy Popcorn on X. We're also at The Hollywood Outsider on Blue Sky and Threads, and we're on Facebook, and we have a Facebook group that's private, which is where we have a lot of our conversations. So find that on Facebook and join. And I hope to talk to you guys soon. But that's it for this episode. So remember, the next time you head to a theater or stream comfortably on your couch watching your favorite actor before they get caught doing something really horrible, buy popcorn.
And I'm giving everyone hugs right now because you might need a warm hug after this topic.
Stay safe, Kurt Russell. Stay safe.
Including Aaron.
Are you kidding? There's no way Goldie Hawn doesn't kill him if it comes out.
Stay safe. Keep him safe and warm, Goldie. Do it for me. All right. And dying, apparently. You okay?
Yep.
You sure?
Swallowed wrong.
All right.
That's what she said.